Do most teens recycle? To find out, AP Statistics class asked a simple random sample of 100 students at their school to whether they regularly recycle. In the sample, 55 students said that they recycle. Is this convincing evidence that more than half of the students at the school would say they regularly recycle? So let's stop there for a second. So we have a sample of 55 out of 100. The sample shows a majority of students recycling. So the question is, does that sample indicate that the majority of the population of all the students at that school recycle? So to do a simulation to figure out the answer to that question, this is how it was set up. It says the Fathom dot plot below shows the results of taking 200 simple random samples of 100 students from a population in which the true proportion who recycle is 50%. Now, why would they do that? Well, we're trying to find out if 55 out of 100 has to come from a population of students where the majority are recyclers. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the population of students has a 50-50 chance of being a recycler. In other words, 50% of the students recycle and 50 don't. So how likely is it that we get 55 out of 100 from a population where only 50% of the students are recyclers? This is similar to the way an election poll is often set up. In an election poll, to do a simulation, maybe in an election poll, you start with the assumption that the candidates, a randomly drawn individual voter is equally likely to vote for either candidate. So the split is 50-50 for who's going to get the votes. Then you look how unusual it is if you got, for example, 43% for one candidate and 57% for the other candidates. Is that likely to happen by random chance, or does that really indicate one candidate has a clear majority over the other? So I want to go back to my smartboard here and take a look at this. So here's our situation. Given that only 50% recycle, that's our hypothetical population. So we could represent that, for example, with a big bowl of colored beads, half of which are black and half of which are red. And this would have to be a really big bowl because I'm taking samples of size 100 from this. So maybe there's 2,000 or 3,000 beads in there. And I stir them up really well, and I grab a little sample of 100 beads, and I get 55 out of the 100 that are recyclers. We'll say the black ones are the recyclers. And then I do it again, and this time I get 43 out of 100, and I do it again, and I get 51 out of 100, and I do it again, and I get 50 out of 100, and I do it again, and I get 49 out of 100, and I do this over and over and over, and I plot and so I do 200 samples, and this is the results that I get. So what answers the question here? The question is, how likely is it to get a sample of 55 or more out of 100 if my population has a 50% chance of being a recycler? So given my hypothetical population, how likely is this to occur? Well, it turns out 43 out of 200 samples showed that 55 or more out of 100 who recycle, if only 50% truly are recyclers. So how do I answer that question? Well, then I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that sample does not convince me that more than 50% recycle, because even when 50% do recycle in my hypothetical population here, that sample result occurs 21.5% of the time, or something even more extreme, occurs 21.43% of the time. Now the second question asks, what if I got a sample of 63 out of 100? Well, in 200 trials of my simulation, I only got 63 out of 100 once from a population with 50% recyclers and 50% not recyclers. So since there was only a 1 of 200 chance of that happening, given my hypothetical of 50-50, then that is convincing evidence that the true population proportion of people who recycle is bigger than 50%. So this is how we interpret a simulation. How unusual is it to get certain sample results given a certain assumption about the population? And if we have a lot of that happening, we say, oh, that's not terribly unusual. We don't have any evidence that in this case, the population does have a larger percentage of people recycle. If the results are really unusual, we say, maybe our original assumption of 50% is not correct. Really, it's probably greater than 50%.